Y'all remember the wise man story? Y'all like the wise man story? We all love the wise man story. Talk to me. Y'all were talk to me. Y'all like wise men? It's a beautiful story, right? Beautiful. They see the Star of David. They see the star. They travel to see baby Jesus bearing beautiful, good, beautiful smelling gifts, all that stuff. It's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful story. I told you. Other half of hope, we're getting raw. It's a beautiful story. I mean, I have no doubt. It's a raw story. It's a raw story. Wise men. Wise men. Just tell you what they were. Point blank, unedited. They were witches. They were witches. You can say sorcerers. I used to get made fun of because I say sorcerers like it's a sauce. Sorcerers, whatever. That's just a male witch. That's what it is, male witch. Magicians, astrologists, star readers. Witch, period. They were witches. Witches. And it's beautiful because the story of, oh, by the way, witchcraft in the Old Testament was punishable by death. So significantly more than half your Bible, you were killed for being a witch. Male witch, female witch, doesn't matter, you were killed. And the most beautiful part of Christmas, the story of Christmas and the legacy of Christ starts out with people who were left out being some of the first invited. That's not what my message is about, but that's awesome. It's raw. Matter of fact, my message is about this twist. Y'all want a twist? Y'all want a twist? Y'all want a twist? How many people do I got that binge Netflix, TV, Hulu, something? You binge. You like to sit and binge. Talk to me. I got some bingers in here. I know I'm talking to humans. Y'all got it? Y'all like to binge. You like a good twist. And before the Netflix originals, there was the Bible. And I'm going to tell you something. I told you I'm going to teach the Bible a little more in this season. I'm going to preach like I always do, but I want to teach you a little bit of it because a lot of you aren't reading it unless I'm talking about it. And until that changes, I'm going to have to teach a little bit. I'm going to give you a great twist. You ready? Those wise men, tell somebody witches, right? Say it. Tell somebody they were witches. Okay? Those wise men came. They were from the fallen Babylonian Empire. Babylon. Okay? 600 years before Jesus, before the first Christmas, Babylon was in its prime. And I'm talking about prime, I mean Mike Tyson in his 20s, before prison, before he had to bite Evander Holyfield's ear off because he couldn't beat him. I'm talking that Tyson. Boy, I am not as lame as y'all are making me out to be. I'm talking Mike Tyson prime. This is Babylon. This is Babylon. 600 years before Christ. They're in their prime. In their prime, the nation of Israel, God's people, were their slaves. Okay? They were their slaves. Daniel. You've read about Daniel. If you've been to Sunday school much as a kid, Daniel in the lion's den, he was a prophet. Daniel's ministry took place in Babylon. Daniel was a prophet to Israel. At the same time, he was a slave in Babylon. The book of Daniel was written when they were slaves 600 years before the first Christmas. You follow me thus far? Daniel was not just a prophet. I'm like going gangster with that. He was not just a prophet. Y'all hear me? He was a wise man. He was a wise man. Tell somebody in your like church gossip voice where you just want them to hear it because no, you don't want anybody else to that you don't trust. Say, Daniel was a witch. Here's what it is. You can read it in the Bible. He was a wise man because Babylon made him not just a slave to Israel, not just a prophet to Israel. He was a wise man. Here's the twist. Boom! I love it. The Bible is gangster. Like I said, 600 years later, the last of these wise men, the last of the glory of old Babylon, those wise men, the reason they were looking for a star and a savior is because of the influence and impact that Daniel made on their lives 6 centuries before. And while you sit in that for a minute, I just want to ask you, think of one person other than Jesus who impacted your life that much 600 years ago. Don't worry, I'll wait. This may be a weird first Christmas series message. I promise we'll jump into the Christmas story for the next week. We'll jump right into it. But today I want to rewind 600 years. I want to go back 600 years. Matter of fact, we did it a few weeks ago. Y'all want to take a ride on the Magic School Bus again? Apparently I got lame people in here who remember that. You young kids still have to watch it. I had nap time. We're going to take a ride on the Magic School Bus. 600 years ago, all my church people out there that you're like, we're going back to Sunday school again. We're going back to the season of your life in Sunday school where you had to go to Sunday school and hear the story that I'm about to tell you. You had to hear it, then you went home and your great church parents put you in the room because they wanted to watch an R movie together before Monday and they left you and abandoned you. We're going back to that season. Y'all okay with that? But don't act like you didn't do it. Parents, don't act like you've never done it. You can be a good parent and do that. We're going back there. But what I want to do for you is I want to give you more out of this story than your Sunday school teacher ever could give you. We're going back. Tell somebody we're going back. I want to start this series out, and even though it's not a Christmas message, it's actually affected the first Christmas, so it's a Christmas message, and I get to do what I want to because I got the mic. Week one, the other half of hope. I want to give you hope in the things you didn't ask for, in what you didn't ask for. That's my title, what you didn't ask for. If you hadn't shared it, the video, share it before we jump into it. I want to talk about the things that you didn't deserve. We talk about a lot of times the mistakes that you brought on yourself, the crap and the drama and the setbacks you brought on yourself. Today, I want to talk about the surprises. I want to talk about the things you didn't ask for, the things you didn't see coming. I want to talk about the things that blindsided you. I want to talk about those. I want to talk about your but thises. You know, we've all made some mistakes, and we made some mistakes, and you're dealing with the people that you're trying to build the relationship. You've made some mistakes, and you're like, but this? You know, you look at God, and you've made some mistakes, but you're in something that you're like, this is a little worse than what I did. And you're like, but this? Tell somebody, I got to wake you up and say, but this? I want to talk about your but thises this morning, because we all got some but thises. And I want to talk about him because before Daniel, 600 years ago, he was not the only person who shaped the nation that made him a slave. He was not the only person that affected that first Christmas 6 centuries before that first Christmas. 3 Jewish boys that you remember studying in Sunday school, or you just get to going around the magic school bus. I get to tell you about them for the first time. Either's fine. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That was not their given names. We'll get to that later. It's not their given names. I want to talk to you about them because they also took part in this influence. And in Babylon's prime, in his like Tyson 20s prime, the king of Babylon was Nebuchadnezzar. I'm going to call him Neb. Is that okay? I stutter too much and all that stuff to be eloquent enough to keep saying Nebuchadnezzar. I'm going to call him Neb. Know it all, Neb. I'm going to make it 2020. Is that okay with you? Y'all were asleep, so I got to make it 2020 for you. I'm going to make it 2020. Here it is. You ever had that guy, everybody's got him, so don't even act like you don't, that family member that is so critical, and they're the family member that crap goes sideways when you come at them the way they come at you because they can't handle the crap that they dish? Yep, you got him, right? Neb, know it all, Neb, boy. Neb was the king, though. He had all the power, and he used it. And Neb had this great idea. He said, let's build a 90-foot statue, and we're going to make everybody worship it. Everybody in Babylon, you're going to worship this 90-foot statue. It's a great idea because that was Nebuchadnezzar for a season. Great idea. So this was what he did. I'm making it 2020, right? He basically said, I'm going to need a lot of water today, apparently. Nebuchadnezzar basically said, here's the deal. When the beat drops, they only had trumpets and harps and lyres back then. Don't judge them. It's all they had. When the beat drops, I want everybody to drop it like it's hot and worship this idol. I know I just made that like 2001, not 2020, but I'm not getting any younger, so you get what you get. You get the picture? When the music starts, everybody has to bow down and worship, and if you don't drop it like it's hot, when the beat drops, you're going in a fiery furnace, and you're going to really be hot. If anybody doesn't worship this idol, they are getting put in a furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not lose their character or their convictions. They were not going to do it. And they didn't even, other people tattletale on them, because if you hadn't figured out, adults are way worse tattletales than kids. Because adults tattletale about more destructive things than kids because we've gotten old enough to be more manipulative. Playground stuff becomes a lot more destructive when you're 25 or 85. So they come tell on him, man. King Neb. There's these 3 guys. They're not doing what you say. And Nebuchadnezzar got furious. You know, like family Christmas. It goes from family Christmas to, oh snaps, Uncle Neb done did it again. We're going to jump into it. Y'all ready? Tell somebody I want to get something out of this. Because it can't be me. I'm crazy. I just try my best. Here we go. Daniel chapter 3, we're going to pick up. I kind of got you up to this point. We're going to pick up at verse 15. I don't know when I'm going to stop and go. I kind of do, but I don't. Verse 15. Nebuchadnezzar says, I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, he's talking to the three guys. If you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God, Nebuchadnezzar's asking, what God will be able to rescue you from my power? Verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, oh, I'm going to tell y'all something. We need this today. They replied, oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. I'm going to say right there, these guys were having to defend their lives, and they literally said, we don't need to defend ourselves before you. You would have a lot more peace and happiness in your life if you would quit working so hard to defend your reputation, your opinions, your political views, everything you're insecure about. If you would quit working so hard to defend yourself and what you believe and where you stand, you may have some peace. These boys right here were facing being thrown into a fire. And their response, hey, Neb, we don't even see why we should defend ourselves right here. I'm keeping on. I know some people are like, oh, I can't do that. I don't even want to. I don't think it's necessary. I need to speak up. Let me just move on. That's not the message. Verse 19. No, actually, that's not where I was. Verse 17. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. Here it is, verse 18. This is the part we're always missing in tough seasons. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, we will never serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up. I'm going to stop right there. These guys did not deserve this. They made the good choices. They were going to get a bad thing because of a good choice. They didn't deserve it. They didn't ask for it. They made good decisions. They had good character. They lived by their convictions. They were good people. I know some of you got, I don't care how bad of mistakes you've made, there's some areas of your life you are a good person. And you're really a good person all around. I mean, there's some areas you're killing it in. That's a better way of putting it. And a lot of times, I don't deserve it in this area. I deserve it in this area. These boys made good decisions. And they were about to get put in a fire that was not their fault. They were about to go into something. They were getting treated in ways they did not deserve, and it happens to every one of us. Because I promise you, in your life, not just behind you, but before you, you are going to be put in some fires. You are going to go through some things that are not your fault. You're going to deal with some things that you didn't deserve. You're going to be blindsided. People will hurt you. Life will shock you. And these guys were sitting about to die in a fire because they did the right thing, because they were faithful. Happens to all of us. Happens to all of us. Every one of us it happens to. You didn't ask for it. You don't deserve it. You didn't ask for COVID. You didn't ask for cancer. You didn't ask for your loved ones to get COVID or cancer. You didn't ask for the things that you have experienced in your life that you no longer like to talk about or really can talk about. You didn't ask for your eating disorder. You didn't ask for your learning disability. You didn't ask for the person who sexually trespassed you. You didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for the bad metabolism, because trust me, I know that it makes me angry when I see skinnies that eat twice as much as me, and I prepare to look at a meal and I can feel my body go into weight gain mode. I didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for the divorce. You didn't ask for your spouse to die. You dreamed of one person, one lifetime, and that's what you were going to build. You didn't deserve it, and you fought so hard to make it work, but it's not where we are today. You didn't ask for it. You don't deserve it. You didn't ask for it. I know a lot of you, you're paying for somebody else's poor decisions. Man, you were raising a baby or very involved in a baby's life that you did not create. But if it wasn't for you investing and being involved in that baby's life, that baby would have nobody. You didn't make the baby, but by God, you're going to have to raise it. You didn't accrue the debt. You didn't have much or any fault in accruing the debt, but by God, you're going to be paying it off. I'm telling you, there are times that you don't have to reap your own bad seeds. There's going to be times in your life that you have to reap other people's bad seeds. You didn't ask for them, you didn't deserve them, but you're going to be in a fire that is your fault, that is not your fault. And you get a choice. You get a choice. Are you going to be faithful in that fire that is not your fault, or are you going to do what most people do? You trusted that person. You thought that you could trust them. They blindsided you. They were supposed to have your back. They were supposed to be trusted, and they shot you. Because as good, as beautiful as what humans are capable of, we are capable of just as bad. Every person, I promise you, if I got distracted long enough, I would blow your minds with how ugly I can be. And I'm ugly sometimes. You just hadn't seen me on Sunday afternoons. They shot you. Walls went up all around you because people that you never thought would trespass you did. Whatever it looks like, you don't have to be happy about it to have hope in it. You do not have to be happy about it to have hope in it. You don't. You don't have to act churchy. You don't have to act rated Disney because you love Jesus when what you're feeling and the wounds and the anger that you're feeling on the inside are rated Game of Thrones TVMA. You don't have to wrap a verse around it to make everybody else feel better about it and to try to make yourself feel better about it. You do not have to. But you also don't have to stay bitter and bougie the rest of your life. I want to show you how today. Because you can have hope and not be happy about it. Excuse me. You can, I said that right. You can. You can. The things in your life you're not happy about, you can have hope in them. Have y'all appreciated my cousin Bradford up here lately? I feel like Bradford and Connor and all the people, Aunt Shell. I mean, literally, we're utilizing people's gift. Bradford, let me tell you something why Bradford's here. There's only one reason he's here, cancer. He texted me this morning, he said, I'm praying for you. He had an emergency. Not an emergency, he had a prior engagement, Got cancer in 2018. Cancer. Colon cancer. Early 40s. Not supposed to get colon cancer, much less colon cancer that spreads to your lymph nodes. 2018 got colon cancer. They had to burn him up with chemo. He was young enough. The only way to do it was to make sure it hopefully wouldn't come back is to burn his tail up. During that 6 months, we reconnected. I promise you that Bradford would not be a catalyst had he not gotten cancer, because God sat Bradford on his butt, because Bradford never sits on his butt, and we would have never been able to come close if God hadn't sat him down. When he got his surgery and he went home with his big scar before he was lit up with chemo, I came to his house and he told me this. He was like, am I scared? Yes. There's a lot more I want to do with my boys. Am I scared? Absolutely. But he said, live or die, it's about his kingdom. From that moment, I saw Bradford to grow and get close. We're passionate people, which means we can say some stuff that probably we don't mean or didn't mean the way we say it. He grew, and he's here today, and he's closer to God because of cancer. But that is not the way it always works out. It's not. We have baptized people in that tank and in my swimming pool, our first baptism before we ever moved here. We baptized people that I was sitting with them on their deathbed. They died too young. They did die. They didn't deserve to die. I'm not talking about people who, abused something their entire life. I'm talking about people that just live like me and you. They enjoyed a good Whopper and they got cancer. And deserve it. The only way in this life to have a faith that cannot be taken from you is to face it with the perspective that these guys faced it with. They told Neb, hey, God can save us, and he will, but if he doesn't, we're still not bowing down. If we burn layer of skin by layer of skin, we will not bow down, we will burn. We will burn. Period. Whether the cancer stays or goes, we're not bowing down, Neb. My faith is in you. Whether your spouse leaves or stays, God, you promise you will never leave me, and I'm not leaving you. Whether the bank account is full or the bank account is overdrawn, God, you were still on the throne. Let's do this. I'll do it broke, but I'm still going to do it. Whether people are good to you, whether your supervisor overlooks you or not, whether you get the promotion or not, you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to tell everybody else about it. I'm game, God. I'm going to take what I'm given and I'm going to give you glory. Live or die, defeat or failure or success, I'm coming. There is no way to have a faith that cannot be stolen from you without facing everything in life this way. Because there are going to be a lot of fires that are not your fault. And here's what you need to know. The fires that are not your fault will affect the rest of your life if you don't handle them right. I'm telling you. The fires that are not your fault, the things that you don't deserve, if you don't handle the things you don't deserve, you are going to bring a ton of things you do deserve on you. I can tell you that a lot of fires that are your fault are because of the things you didn't handle well that weren't. Or you just didn't handle them. There's some things you keep pressing down and running from and you don't want to address, you don't want to talk about, you don't want to process through. Listen to me. The fires that aren't your fault are the most important fires you'll ever fight. And if you don't fight them with the faith, like these guys, you don't have to live or die. You can breathe and be dead. That's the only way. It's the only way. There's a lot of things that are going to happen in your life that you don't deserve because life is not fair. Honestly, the favor of God is not fair. I find that some of the best sermons I've ever preached in my life are when I was absolutely broken, but I had to lean completely on Him. You can't let what you didn't see coming cause you to go in default mode. Because when you go in default mode, you begin to live desperate. And when you live desperate, it's very hard to find good opportunities, a good man, a good woman, a good anything. And even if you find it, you can't keep it and can't handle it. And even if you keep it and handle it, you don't enjoy it because you're desperate. I hope you hear me. There is no way to face the good times if you haven't faced the fires that weren't your fault the right way. There's hope in them. Oh, there's hope in them. But you better face them the right way because they'll affect the rest of your life. These guys says, Nebuchadnezzar, whether God comes through or not, I'm not bowing down. I'm sticking to who God created me to be. Oh, I'm not even scratched the surface of this story, y'all. Verse 19, here we go. Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. You ever had that drama in your life? Doesn't have to look the same as this, but people are so angry that you can see it all over them, or they push it down, but you know them well enough that you can see the anger in their spirit. You ever had those moments that are so heavy, you just stay true to your convictions, and this person that is so freaking bitter is about to explode, and they know we're going in that fire. Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded, sorry, I lost my place. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the fire, into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire, I want you to see this. Such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the fire, the roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" Yes. Sorry, I lost my place. "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did." My eyes are getting worse. They replied, verse 25, here we go. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." Oh, we're going to get to that in a minute. We ain't there yet. Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers, officials, governors, and advisors crowded around the men and saw the fire had not touched them. Here it is. Whatever you go through, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know when it's going to happen. Not a hair on their heads was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. Whatever dysfunction and addiction in your life, whatever insecurities, whatever thing you're holding inside and struggling within yourself, it says this, that they didn't even smell the smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any God except their own God. The story continues. Nebuchadnezzar makes law that the God of Babylon is now the God of Israel. That Babylon, tell me they didn't affect that first Christmas. Babylon changed their views. But I want to back up a minute. These boys did the right thing, right? They had faith because it's easy to preach it. It's easy to feel good about it on Sunday. But Neb came back at them and was so angry, and he threw them in the fire, and he made the furnace so hot. Here it is. This is what you need. Bitterness will do this. You can be Neb, you can turn into Neb, or you can handle the fires and start to handle them like these boys. The fire was turned on so hot that his soldiers that were loyal to Nebuchadnezzar got killed because of the fire. Because of his anger, he killed his own boys. Bitterness does it all the time. You may be afraid to look at it and see it. You may not want to, but that's what bitterness looks like. Bitterness does not just affect you. It hurts the people around you. Hey, it may look different. You may be able to ignore it. You didn't deserve what you went through, but other people don't deserve to deal with what you're dishing out either. And I promise you, when you were bitter like Nebuchadnezzar, where his soldiers got killed because of his stubborn anger, what happens is the people that are hurt by you are not the people who hurt you. You most all the time hurt the people who didn't hurt you when you're living in bitterness. Nebuchadnezzar killed his own soldiers because he got so pissed off and bitter. And I promise you, Nebuchadnezzar he brought this fire on them. But I promise you, in his past, he didn't handle some fires well either. But either way, these guys were about to get thrown into a fire. And that's what bitterness does, Catalyst. It's what it does. You want to know why you keep having terrible endings to your relationships? It's because you're treating every partner you have like your ex. People are caught in, just like Nebuchadnezzar, people are caught in the crossfire of how you're acting. And you're hurting other people because somebody hurt you and you didn't deal with it. Fires that weren't your fault, now you're creating fires that are. Your new boss isn't your old boss. But I promise you, if you treat that relationship the same way and come in there with your walls open or your walls up, I promise you the result of the relationship will be the same. Your wife is not your mama. Your husband is not your daddy. But your marriage can be worse than your parents if you treat it that way and treat them that way. Bitterness doesn't just hurt you. Nebuchadnezzar set a furnace so hot that it killed people who were loyal to him. It's what it does in your life. Details may be different, but it's the exact same. Either way, these boys were going into a fire that was not their fault. This is where I get to teach the Bible now. Y'all ready? Went into a fire, straight up. Boop! Going into a fire. They had the faith, if we burn, we burn. Then all of a sudden they say there's 4. And one looks like a god. So in the Old Testament, okay, about 12 times, if I'm not mistaken, there is the appearance of what's called the angel of the Lord. It's actually translated the angel of Yahweh. Most scholars agree that this angel is basically, I'm going to say it in simple terms, it's basically Jesus before he became a man. Jesus is in that fire with them. Isn't that the gospel? Isn't that Christmas? What did they say about baby Jesus? They said Emmanuel, which means God with us. It's the gospel. The fires that you get thrown in that are your fault or aren't your fault, God is right there with you. We serve a God who at Christmas came to earth to connect with us, to relate to us, to draw close to us, because he is not embarrassed by us. He is not ashamed of us. He knows us. He knows what we're capable of, and he is not afraid of our. That is Christmas. That is the gospel. Jesus was in the fire with them. And they saw it. They saw what? That fourth one isn't a person. It's a God. Neb says, guys, get on out. Come on out. Come on out. Come on out. They didn't even have the smell of smoke on them. They didn't have the smell of smoke on them. I want you to know, whatever dysfunction you grew up in, you can come out of anything better than you went in it. Whether it's your fault that you went in it or not, you can come out better. These boys came out without even the smell of smoke. Whatever dysfunction you grew up in, whatever addiction, whatever problems you have in your life, listen to me, you can come out better than you went in, regardless of how you went in or why you went in it. Anything. They didn't even have the smell of smoke. They didn't even have residue from the fire. And whatever you've been through that you don't think you can overcome, or you don't ever think you can be at a place you deserve what God wants to do, you can. You can. You can be a better parent than your parents were to you and not be bitter at your parents. You can live the promise of God and not have to prove to other people who doubted you that you lived the promise of God. You can come out of it better than you went in it. These guys said, it's on you, God. It's on you. If I burn, I'm going to burn for you. If you save me, I'm going to be saved for you. I want to finish on this. I want to give you really quickly three qualities that if you will live this, you will come out of anything better than you went in it. The outlines are on the church app. You can write this down. 3 qualities. You ready? You with me? You ready? I know it's heavy, but you ready? Number 1, character. Character. No matter what you go into, no matter what anybody does to you, no matter what you walk through, you do not need to lose your character. And if you lose it, you need to take it back. You need to take it back. I've had people the last few months of my life, or the last few months in general of my life, it's awful, terrible. The last few months, people have asked me, how are you doing? People are like, you're having to help everybody else sort through their feelings. I mean, that's what a pastor does for the most part anyway. Angie's like, how are you doing? And to be honest with you, I'm fine. Like, seasons are heavier. Some are heavier than others. But let me tell you what changed me. That gives me the peace of God in anything I face. Doesn't make it easy. It just makes me not get lost in it. I found out, I don't even know when, I can't face anything. Neither can you. Anything. I can't be anything outside of who I am. So if I face anything in life that is bigger than Ben, I've still got to face it being who Ben is. I can't let people, I can't let situations, I can't let things that happen that are my fault or aren't my fault, I can't let anything cause me to handle any situation outside of who I am. That's not just pastoring, that's parenting, husband, brother, son, cousin, friend. I have to stay true to who I am. So what's given me that peace is no matter, even if I face things that are way bigger than me, way bigger than what Ben can take, God called me to be Ben and face it. There's a lot of things I can't do. These lights. I called Jack. Worst case scenario, I'm going to be preaching in the dark. Online, I'd have to apologize. I have to stay true. I have to handle things within myself. So I've learned that no matter what I face, I've got to face it as me. And whether I succeed or fail, I've got to be true to who God created me to be. That's what happens. Seasons are hard. Life sucks sometimes. And when you lose yourself, you start working outside of who you are because you go into default mode. A lot of you have learned you've acted so much different than who you really are because you lost your character at some point. I had to learn the thing I'm scared of the most is not losing, it's losing me. It's becoming something that I'm not. And that's what happens. You lose yourself. And if you lose yourself, if you lose yourself, you're losing. And I promise you, the seasons ahead of you, you will lose too. And if you've lost your character, take it back. Go back to the season of your life. Go back to the season that you know you were hurt the most. Take an honest look, and I promise you will find, if you're willing to be honest, that your life is at least a little closer, probably a lot closer to the season that hurt you, and you probably act a lot like the person who hurt you because you lost yourself. Remember who you are and remember who God created you to be. Don't apologize for it, but get back to it. Character. Character. Don't lose it, because you'll lose everything if you lose your character. 2, contentment. Contentment. The Apostle Paul said this. He said, I've learned to be content in every season, whether well-fed or hungry, whether in prison or free. I've learned to be content. I've learned in my life there is no way for me to truly trust God if I'm trying to fight for control. The Apostle Paul said, whether I eat or drink, I do it for the glory of God. You can be stressed out, you can be busy, you can feel behind, you can be betrayed, you can be financially, you can go through anything for the glory of God and be content. But if you're fighting for control, you're not going to be content. Ever. 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 Some of the hardest days of my life, hardest seasons of my life, I worked at Walmart. Some of you guess, your light bulb went on. It happens all the time. Oh, that's where I know it from. Worked there 13 and a half years. I worked there about 7 years after I got my last degree. I can tell you that some of the seasons at Walmart, those especially that probably last 12 years, probably all of it, shoot. I would pour myself out to this community. I greeted as hard as I can. Those were probably some of the circumstances in my life that came the closest to crushing me and changing me. And I can tell you I stood at that door. And not just bad seasons. I had people, when I was pouring my heart out, come in, pastors, say, what are you doing with your life, man? You got degrees, what are you doing? Pastors. When I dated Angie, I had people I heard through the grapevine, people were like, man, what's he doing? How's he going to get a family of 4? He's at Walmart. That season's just sitting there and being empty, but giving whatever I had that day. I learned contentment. I've had to learn a lot more, but those were the first steps. Whether I feel behind or not, I've got to be faithful. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, whether I go in this fire or not, I got to be faithful. Contentment. The Bible says contentment and godliness are great gain. And lastly, say it with me, consistency. I want to tell you the most beautiful part of this whole thing. Consistency. Do it again every single day. Don't lose your character. Stay content. Stay obedient. Consistently. Neb couldn't change these guys. These guys changed the nation. And the effects were felt 6 centuries later. That first Christmas, where the last of a great nation was looking for a Savior because of these guys. And here's the most beautiful part that hit me on Monday. I was like, there it is. A lot of great stories in the Bible where God changes names. Great stories. God changes names, man. It's great. Jacob, Israel is his name. Saul turned into the Apostle Paul. So many great name changes. Beautiful stories. This is not one of them. Not one of them. The stories, the names that we know these guys as were their slave names. The names they were given as slaves by Babylon. Shadrach. Shadrach's name. Hananiah. Meshach was not born Meshach. He was born Mishael. And Abednego was born Azariah. But that was the names they were given. It's a beautiful story of people that took what they were given and glorified God. And that is all God calls us to do. You got to take what you're given. You don't have to like it. You don't have to be happy about it. Matter of fact, you can be very pissed off about it. But you take, because I promise you those guys were like, oh, snaps, we're speaking faith, but that fire's hot. But they took what they were given, called by names that were not who they were. They took their chips and they pushed them to the center of the table and said, I'm all in. Didn't have to make sense. It wasn't their fault, but they were faithful. And I promise you, there is hope. There is hope in the things that you didn't ask for and do not deserve. It's available to you. It's not a warm and fuzzy hope, this type of hope, but it's a real and it's a raw hope. It's a hope that this Christmas we are going to grow in and we are going to believe and not settle for less. Y'all want that catalyst? Connor's going to come up and close this message. I love you guys.
Check. Hey guys. I know you guys, some of you guys know that Ben's my stepdad, but some of you guys might not. So me and Ben wanted to kind of take this opportunity to kind of open up, especially in this season, and with this series that we're going through, with it being the other half of hope. We've talked about hope a lot. That's what I love about Ben's preaching, is he's always talking about hope, no matter where you're at or what you're in. But we're kind of focusing on the other half of hope, and when things don't go your way and when you experience things that you didn't ask for. So I just kind of wanted to open up to you guys about my story personally. So obviously Ben's my stepdad. My real dad passed away from a battle with cancer in 2013, and that was about 3 months before I left to go to college. So I had just graduated. My dad was there with me when I graduated, my mom, my family, and then a few short months later, he lost the battle. So, and that was just one of those things that just kind of took me off guard, you know. He had battled with cancer before, but beat it, and then it came back, and then within a year, he was gone when we thought, you know, he had beat it. So, but you know, that's just something that I didn't ask for. You know, everybody, when they're a kid and they think of their dreams and what they want to do, they want to go to college and they want to get married and have kids and all this stuff, and they envision having their dad there to see it happen. And while God has blessed me tremendously in His place, there's still certain things that, you know, I guess just won't be the same. You know, when I got married, you know, my dad wasn't there. When I have kids one day, you know, he won't be there. But God will still be there with me. You know, He's provided infinite amount of things and blessings for us. Ben is a huge blessing. But I know some of you guys have felt that pain too. Things that you didn't see coming, things that blindsided you, make you wonder why you deserve that or what you did. It's not what you did, it's just life that happens. You know? So I just wanted to share my story with you. I know a lot of you may already know that, but a lot of you also might not know that. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the other half of hope and things that you didn't want and have to deal with in life. So, but I know a lot of you guys have that pain, that have those things as well.